Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome everybody to Real Chat with Kat. I'm so excited to have you guys join us today with our amazing guest, Miss Valincia Bennett. So Valencia, welcome to the podcast. Do us all a favor. Tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to get on people's cool podcasts and be a part of their shows. So for me, I am a business coach and strategist for coaches. And so what I do is I work directly with coaches to help them simplify their systems and strategies so it's easy for them to achieve those consistent 10K plus months. I always
Ooh,
like to
plus
add the
plus.
plus. Um, because you online you hear people like 10K is just the minimum or something like that. And I'm like, if you can put the right systems and things in place to hit 10K, then we can scale it way beyond that. But like if you haven't made 10K yet, let's focus on that first and then we'll elevate from there. So that's why I
Love
like to add the
that.
plus.
Now, what got you into being a coach for coaches?
You know what? I went through this point in time. I know a lot of people go through this, but I really went through this stage where I was like, I don't know who in the world I'm serving. Like when I first started out, I was like, I want to serve everyone. I love business. Whoever needs my help, I'm here to help. And I
Yeah.
did that. No, like I did that for a solid probably year or so. And I work with different industries, real estate, beauty salons, beauty products, you name it. I was working with people with different companies. But I realized I was having to customize everything for each industry. And
Hmm.
it was a lot of time. Like, it was a lot. And I was like,
Yeah.
girl, you left corporate because you were getting burnt out. And I was like burning myself out in the first year of my business. And I was like, okay, something has to give. You got to figure something out. And so I really I hired a business coach. We started really working on my niche, right? Like, who's your niche? Who do you really want to focus on? And I
Yeah.
realized I just started building this amazing community of coaches. Like everywhere I looked, I was friends with coaches. I was in groups with coaches. And I'm like, you know
Hmm.
what? I'm going to serve coaches because I'm like, I'm already around them. And I just wanted to bring all of the cool, innovative things from different industries when it came to business into the
Hmm.
coaching industry. And so that's what made me be like, I want to work with coaches. And because they're people that lead with their heart and they're amazing and they just want to help and just change the world and impact so many people. And they're
Yeah.
great at that. But I realized they really struggle with the business side of things. And I'm like, yeah, I can definitely benefit this industry big time. So that's what led me to coaches.
I love that. And it's interesting because it is that a lot of people that I do chat with go through this journey, right? And I do think that in my opinion, that it's kind of like a natural process of figuring out what you want to do in your business, right? I mean, it's kind of the same way if you think about it, like when you get your first job, right? Like you go here and you go there and you try some things out and you're like, I kind of like that. No, I'm not going to go back to doing that stuff, right? Like, so it's still trial and error, I feel like. But I am totally with you in like the beginning. Like all I wanted to do was I just wanted to help everybody.
Mhm. Yeah.
So when you are having these conversations with coaches and kind of working through their business with them, what is a couple of things that you tend to see, like that's generalized across the board, that you find people are needing help with in that industry?
Yeah. So honestly, the biggest pain point for most of the coaches I run into is like clients, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
finding clients and building that consistent revenue, because they go through those feast and famine cycles. Like you'll have months where they get two to three, four clients, and then for months at a time, it's crickets. And
Yep.
so they're like, Valencia, I need more consistent income. So that's one of the big pieces. The next things is like the systems and strategies, right? Like knowing what they're supposed to be doing daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. I literally have a document that tells people what to do in that sequence.
Uh-oh.
But they go through that and they're because they don't know what to do. They're like, what am I supposed to be focusing on? I hear
Mm-hmm.
the gurus telling me to do this and do that. And so it's just a lot of confusion for them and
Yeah.
it makes them kind of stuck and not know how to continue to move their business forward. So normally those are like the biggest things I've noticed is that inconsistent revenue. And then really just trying to figure out what in the world they're supposed to be doing every day to really make this business grow the way that they want it to grow.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you say that the feast and the famine, because I do feel like that is a huge thing across the board for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. Even when I started out in the real estate world, that was something that they talked about, but they call it the roller coaster ride, where like you're up at the peak and you're doing really good, and then you drop back down and you have to come back up, right? They talk about that a lot, which I never really understood until I got into the business, but it's the same thing across the board with entrepreneurs. And I feel like sometimes we find ourselves in that because like we spend so much time hustling and getting to knowing people and all the things. And then like once we get a couple of clients, we kind of back off of those systems or tools or whatever it is we are doing, because now we're so hyper focused on who we're helping and who we're working with and making sure that we're providing enough value and making sure that we're giving to them exactly what we promised and more, that our focus is completely blinded from the other automational pieces in the business that
Mhm.
need to keep running alongside what you do to continue down a little bit more of a straight path instead
Mhm.
of those large
Up
dips.
and down. Yeah. No, and absolutely. It's people, but like you said, you can't get comfortable. As an entrepreneur, you cannot get to the point where you're comfortable. You always have to be growing your business, like marketing and sales. That's huge. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
you have to have those pieces in the background. And I teach my clients on the back end. It's like, okay, once you establish all of this, all the foundations, now let's outsource it, right? And
Yeah.
have people make sure that it's continuing because you don't want to have to do it all yourself. You want to make sure you have some really solid people helping you make
Mm-hmm.
all of those things run so you can focus on what it is that you love most. And that's coaching. That's
Yeah.
spending that one-on-one time with your clients or spending time in your group. But yeah, you have it has to keep going. You can't your foot always has to be on the pedal. As an entrepreneur, your foot always has to be on the pedal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that you brought up the fact that, once you get to a point in your business, you really do want to start focusing on some type of automation or delegation within that process. But I would love to dive into that a little bit too and make it a point to those that are newer in the business that might be listening, because I do feel like people tend to do things a little backwards. And I think that that's one of the reasons why they get stuck, especially in the beginning of their business, because they're trying to build and they're just trying to make connections and they're trying to get engagement and in front of people. And then they hear all these people say, oh, well, you need to automate this and you need to do this. You need to hand this off and don't do that because it's not your zone of genius. And while, yes, I agree with that, I also feel like, and I'd love your opinion, that you also need to get to a certain point in your business, unless it's just something you're absolutely really horrible at or is taking a lot of your time and you need to hand off, like branding, that, that you need to understand the ins and outs of your business and create systems, even if they're simplified, right? I don't care if it's a spreadsheet that just is like, hey, this is how I use my Calendly link when I send it to people. These are the emails that I would send to them. Something simplistic so that when you do get to the point of, okay, this is no longer what I want to do because this takes up too much of my time with like follow up or staying in touch, I can bring someone in. You have some type of foundational piece that person can grasp, or a VA or whatever the case may be, so that you can hand it off. Because otherwise, I feel like you are just going to be spending so much time teaching because you don't even know your own processes, that now you're right back in the hole where you were, except for now you're paying someone else to try to help you figure out where you need to get to go to keep them.
Well, and you know what? The simplest way I can put it is you cannot outsource chaos.
Mm,
I tell people that all the time. You have to know what it is that you're doing in your business for you to outsource it. I
yeah.
remember when I first started, and that was my mistake. Like I tried to hire a VA, and I'm thinking this VA is about to do everything for me. I'm like, I need you. And like, I was like, hey, I just need you to do this. And it's like, well, I need you to give me more direction. I'm like, no, you need to know how to do it. I don't know. I'm getting you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I was like, okay, this is not how this works, Valencia. Like, you really have to take the time to learn these things. So when people outsource things, like I'll use LinkedIn, for example. So many people still have the false idea that LinkedIn is like this resume website and it's super professional and you have to have like you post articles and all of that.
Yeah.
And typically when you hire a VA to manage your LinkedIn, that's what they're going to do. And then you're going to be like, why am I not getting any traction? But if you're really on the platform, you're really identifying what's going on, you're realizing it's nothing like that anymore. People are
Mm-hmm.
sharing their wins, their losses, their personal stories. They're giving out amazing value. Like this, it's an insane, I don't know, it's like insane what has happened with this platform over the years.
Oh, yeah.
But it's important for a business owner to know that so that you know what you're expecting when you work with that VA or whoever you outsource to. If you don't know, then they're not going to know and they're going to do what they
Yep.
think they're going to think what works is working, but it's really not working.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's you really have to learn to do these things yourself. And once you do it, get to a solid point where you feel good about it and then hand it off for the next person for them to elevate it for you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can't start there. Unfortunately, you cannot.
Yeah.
You have to do
No.
it yourself.
I love the way you put that too. And it makes a lot of sense. You can't hand off chaos. And it's interesting too, what you say about LinkedIn, because, I thought the same thing when I first got into
Mhm.
business. I'm like, oh, it's just corporate, it's resumes, it's, all these suited up people, like, but it really is an amazing platform. It's just a
Mhm.
higher level of conversation, where Facebook was originally, in my opinion, kind of created for your families and your friends and all that community. And it's gone that direction. And while there are groups in there and people have put their businesses out there, LinkedIn is just a higher caliber in the types of conversations and the way that people are picking each other up or sharing certain things on that platform, because it was this business based entity, in my opinion. And it's funny enough, to anyone that's listening, I just released an episode with a lady who specializes in LinkedIn, and it was a blast. Like, I learned so much
Mhm.
about LinkedIn that I wasn't even aware of, because while I've gotten into the platform, I've still been kind of like, oh, I'm not sure, like, what do I think about this?
Mhm.
But it does make a lot of sense. And I was curious if you had any tips to people as well. When I think about automation and kind of getting the ball rolling, I always like to share with people as well, like, when you're in the process of learning your business and building your own systems in it, or just kind of trying to get things into more of a habitual state, I don't think that people realize that there are simple things and simple tools that you can use that either, one, don't cost anything, or two, are extremely cheap in order for you to kind of just push your business forward, right? So, like, for instance, Calendly, and I know there's like Acuity scheduling, and there's all these different scheduling links. You can use Calendly for free and have one event active
Yep.
right? And it doesn't cost anything. Now you can do a lower cost plan and have multiple events, but if you're just wanting to connect with people and you're spending way too much time in email going back and forth, like, oh, well, I'm in this time zone, you're in this time zone, does this day work? You can literally have one event on Calendly for free that you could be sending to people. So it's in a simplified email that is set up. If you use Gmail, you can use the template space, which is free. So you can write out templates for when you're introducing people or when you're connecting with people, or if you want to send a follow-up email, so that instead of you having to remember what you wrote last time and make it sound good, you just pop the name in, change a couple things if you want to add some extras, and send it off. So I don't think that people realize some of the simplistic tools that are out there that they can use just to get them started, but to start gaining that momentum of having your time to do more of what you want to do in your business so you can start growing.
Absolutely. And something like you said, like like Google Suite, right? You have Google
Yes.
Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides. You have it
Mm-hmm.
all. The issue is when people start, they like, oh my goodness, I heard about Asana and I heard about ClickUp and they think about all these
Yes.
systems, which there's a learning curve to use those systems. And yes, you
Mm-hmm.
can use that with time, but starting out, I highly recommend just using Google. Like I still use Google to
I
this point.
love Google.
Yes. Like I use it still to this point. Now, yes, do I have other systems? Like, yes, I use Kajabi. I use those other things because I've grown my business to the point where I needed more high tech systems and solutions.
Mm-hmm.
But starting out and still to this day, I love some Google. I still use a notebook. Like this is my
Yep.
to-do list because sometimes people are like, "Oh, I need to put it on the computer and cross it off there." But if you're naturally not wired that way to look on your computer to see what it is that you need to do for the day, then it's okay to use paper. Like I still use
Mm-hmm.
my to-do list is still in a paper agenda. And I love that. I look at it and I operate from there. So certain things you have to just learn to start where you are and advance to those other points, right? When you
Yep.
get those really high quality project management systems and
Mm-hmm.
systems where you do all of your email marketing and things like that. But yeah, keep it simple. Don't try to overcomplicate it. It's okay. Trust me. Plenty of my clients have received Google Docs and they love it. And I've worked with coaches that charge a ton and they still use Google Docs. Like
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So don't try to
I
overcomplicate it in that place. Please don't.
Yes, please. And you brought up such a good point too, because you said if you don't naturally operate that way, it's not going to work for you. That I have said that so many times to so
Mm.
many clients and people that I have worked with, right? Like, yes, having a calendar online that is connected
Oh
across
yeah.
all devices, yes, because you can schedule your invites through there, you can schedule group meetings, you can share, yes. But just like you said, your task list, if you are not task oriented to already have it so that you have a check mark box, that is not going to help you. I did the same thing. So I actually, in the very beginning of my business, was like, okay, I need everything to be streamlined. Everything needs to
Mhm.
be online. And so I tried Asana, I tried Monday. And
Yep.
I will tell you that as soon as I got into both of those platforms, while I have seen people use them and they're great, I am not that person to go in and build all that crap out for it to make sense to me. I just got frustrated with it like immediately and just like shut
Right.
down after spending hours of trying to figure out how to use it. And I just quit. And I did the same thing. I went right back to pen and paper. And that's where a lot of my stuff went. And now I have transitioned over because I live by my calendar so much that I have tasks, which by the way, everybody, is an app that's free that's connected to your Google Calendar.
I use that too.
I love that, so now, and I still have sticky notes. Like if I know that I have something that needs to get done like later on in the week and I'm thinking about it and I don't have anything else around me, it goes on a sticky note because it can go in front of me and I'm like, oh, okay, that's for later this week. Or when I go to look at my calendar that morning for what I'm doing for that day, I'll start adding tasks into where I do have free space. And then I start filling it in on my computer at that point in time. But I love that you brought that up because that is something that I bring up to people a lot because we do tend to listen to all these people that are teaching all of the things, and we forget that the people that are teaching because it worked for them.
Absolutely.
Because it worked for them, which doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work exactly the same way for you. Now, if you and that person are very similar, right, you can probably get a lot of tips and tricks from them and be like, oh, this is fantastic. But if you're doing what most people do, and I'm sure you've seen this, Valencia, where they've taken a lot of courses, they've been in a lot of classes, and now they have so many things strung out that they're trying to do that honestly don't align with who they are as a person. They're so overwhelmed, they don't know how to take the first step to start
Yeah.
getting momentum in their business again.
Yeah. And, and the easiest way for me to put that too is people, it's like a lot of coaches that I run into, because I typically work with coaches that have been in business for at least 1 year. So a
Mm-hmm.
year plus, I like to work with those coaches, and they have all of these different pieces to the puzzle. They just don't know how to put it together
Yes.
because they've, like you say, they've taken the courses, they listened to the gurus, they've made templates, they've done this, they've done that. And they're like, okay, I have all of this stuff. I have no idea how to put it together to make it run smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much where I come in and help them, like, okay, I've got you. This is what you need to do. Because that's what's important, right? Like that's how you're going to be able to grow and scale and hit those goals that you set for yourself. And having all of those things it's good, but it can definitely be overwhelming. It can be
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that is where I find, especially for my clients, that that's where they tend to stop trying is at that point,
Yeah.
because they've introduced themselves to so many aspects and so many pieces that everyone suggests that they don't know what is best for them because they've already taken everybody else's beliefs on how those systems worked for them, and
Mhm.
they feel like, oh, well, then it should work for me, right? Where I feel like a lot of us, and I know for me specifically, and a lot of my other people that I've chatted with on this podcast, we've all gone through a journey, and a lot of that is healing from other things and learning who we are and who we want to be and learning to trust more of ourselves. But then we get into this learning phase and we go right back into trusting everybody else's words, when in reality, like if you really sat and thought about when you sit through a class or when you sit through a course with someone, you can tell when you're going through it what is aligning with you and what you're like, you know what, that really makes sense to me, and what pieces that you're like, I should probably leave that alone. And if people could learn to do that when they're taking these classes, I think it would be such a tremendous help to them, because
Absolutely.
you're trusting in yourself, you're putting your self's knowledge first, which is better than anybody else's,
Mhm.
and you're allowing yourself to see the possibilities but not be overwhelmed by intaking all of the possibilities that might not necessarily be yours.
Absolutely. Like it's okay. Like it's like our body and mind tells us, right? Like we have to listen
Mm-hmm.
to that. Like it's your intuition. You know what will work sometimes and sometimes you don't. And it's okay to test it out and try it. Even when with my clients, yes, there's a lot of systems and things that I've used and put in place, but sometimes their target audience is different from mine. And so you have
Mm-hmm.
to make those tweaks. You have to make those changes to the strategy so that it works and appeals to their audience. And that's where a lot of people go wrong is they do create this general fix all solution, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. That
Yeah.
person has to know, like, yes, I'm listening to what this person is telling me, but I need to be able to make those adjustments and adapt it to what my audience is looking for. And that's the question I always ask is like, will this resonate with my audience?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something my audience will appreciate? Is this something that they would like? Because if your audience doesn't like podcasts, then you shouldn't do podcasts, right? Even though you may love
Yeah.
to do podcasts, but if your audience doesn't like podcasts, then that may not be the route you need to go. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really just being in tune with yourself and with the people that you're serving and really leading from that place and space so that you can get those results that you're looking for. Because, yeah, the guru, everybody telling you what to do, how to do it, it's a bit much and it's overwhelming, but I get it.
Hmm.
Everybody's trying to make money, everybody's trying to make a living, everybody's trying to feed their families. And so, yes, it works for some, but not all.
Yeah. And you made another great point too, when you were talking about leaning into what your audience is looking for. I
Mm.
I love that piece right there because like you were even saying in the beginning, and I know we talked about this as well, like we wanted to help everybody. And it is very important to understand your audience and where they're at, right? Because I know that I've had some clients that are on like TikTok and things like that. And when you ask the questions of like, okay, well, why are you using that platform? Well, because everybody's on it. And I'm like, okay. But when you start asking the questions of like, who is your target audience, your demographics, and there are some people that can get really niched down in that, right? Well, if your target audience is not the younger generation, TikTok is going to be probably completely out for you because you're not even reaching the people that ultimately you want to be in front of. So now you're wasting your energy pushing things out onto a platform that's not actually going to be bringing you the people that you resonate with. But I want to ask you this question because I would love your insight on it because I feel like I don't ever dive into this piece with people. I always talk about people finding their audience or finding their avatar, the people that they love. How would you help someone, or what suggestions could you give for people to take this huge generalized statement of I help all entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
really kind of start to hone in a little bit more on who that person is? And that doesn't necessarily have to be, right, a specific group of entrepreneurs. Some people, it's like you said, within the first year of business, like those are the people that I help, right? I have some that are like, oh, I only want people that are making 10 million and plus, right? That's
Yeah.
very specific, but it still leaves this beautiful broad range for what people are doing. So yeah, I would love your intake on that piece.
The first thing I would say is really assess you, right? Like think about your transformations. Because typically the people we're serving are the people that they were the versions of us years ago, if you're a
Mm-hmm.
coach, right? But if you are someone who's just wanting to start an industry, think about your expertise. Where will you shine the most? Where is it? What is that area that you're like, oh my goodness, this is what I can do with my eyes closed if I wanted to? And it's okay if you're not at that point yet, but you know that you are interested enough to get to that point. From
Mm-hmm.
there, it's then to figuring out who will this benefit the most. And where people mess up is like, oh, I just want to serve this group because I love them. But like, no, who will this benefit the most? And there's a lot of people who create offers that don't match their target audience. And that creates this mismatch and it creates this point where people have a very difficult time selling their product because their
Mm-hmm.
audience that they're trying to sell it to, they don't even want it. So it's really figuring out who you know what you want to offer. Now figure out who is it, what group of people will this benefit the most. And then think about their habits, right? Like, and the beautiful thing too about it is don't assume. I tell people get on a phone call with the people. Don't just be like, oh my goodness, I have this and it's going to be amazing for
Mm-hmm.
construction workers. I know they're going to love it. Like, no, call construction workers and ask them, hey, I'm creating this. Will this be something you would be interested in? Hey, where do you normally purchase services from? Are you on social media? What's your pains with this? What's your dreams with this? Like, really ask those questions to people so that you know if it's something they're going to be interested in buying.
Yeah.
And a lot of people skip that part. They're like, oh my goodness, I know this is going to start, people are going to love it. It's going to be amazing. I'm selling it on the market. And I always ask, did you talk to the people, at least 10 people and ask them if they would like that? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And you want to be able to use the words that they're telling you and put it in your messaging and your marketing because now
Mm.
you know you're truly resonating with them. And I say that all the time. It's like sometimes we get very stuck on, oh, I love this word, clarity. But some people, they don't understand what clarity means. They're like, okay, like I get it, but what is it that you're going to do for me? Like, what is it
Yeah.
that you're going to do for me? And so clarity for some people is like you're going to help them get this dream job, or you're going to help them solve all of their problems. There's some problems that are surface around whatever it is that they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So really just being clear on what it is that you want to do, figuring out what audience it will serve best, but then also the money part is important too, right? Like what audience can afford what it is that you're trying to do as well.
Yeah.
And then get on a call with them. Have you can have 10, 20, 30 phone calls all in the same target audience, asking them these detailed questions to really make sure it's a good fit. Because that's the best way to do it versus trying to just assume that they're going to love it.
Oh, I love that. That is, oh, that's such a powerful piece too, because you said assumed. We tend to do that so
Mm.
much when we are trying to figure things out in our business. And that's one thing that, I was really aware of from the beginning when I got into it. And I learned to ask a ton of questions, because the more
Mhm.
questions that I could ask, the more I could tailor it to that person, and the more I could realize which part of that I enjoyed doing and which part I didn't, right? And you made a really powerful, insightful piece about that, about also knowing who you are and how you work as well, right? Because this is something I had to be really aware of, and I pay attention to that a lot when I am talking with people, is I know that I am more of a direct person. This is what we're going to do. Get it done, right? I'm not the let me hold your hand, let me be gentle with you, I'm going to walk you through it. If it takes longer, it's okay. I can hold your hand a little bit, but I know where my limits are, and I know when I'm going to be ready to push you. So I need to be able to work with people that are okay with having that little bit of push to get them over that hump of comfortability or scarcity or fear, whatever that is. As long as they're okay with, like, hey, are you in for this? Great. Then we're going to do it. And they're like, yes, it scares the crap out of me, but yes, like those are my people. And I know that. Right. And so that was so powerful. And it makes so much sense when you are finding the people that connect with you, is making sure that you understand how you work as well, because you are going to want to attract those kinds of people. You're not looking for people that are the complete opposite of you when they are your clients. Now, you may be looking for someone that's a little bit opposite of you if you're hiring for an admin or a VA, because they
Okay.
fill in those spots. But for your clients, there needs to be that synchronicity, right? So that
Yeah.
you are kind of on the same wavelength of perception when you're explaining things, and that they're understanding it. And I love that you said to, reach out and ask people. I think that's amazing. Like for people that maybe have an offer that they're thinking about doing, offering a free workshop or a free 5-day challenge to see who pops into it. Ask them questions while you're in it. What were your takeaways? What are some things you wish would have done differently? What do you wish you would have learned? Those are how you learn and tweak to really figure out what aligns with people. And I love the fact that you touched base on the wording. That was something I struggled with in the beginning for a while, like quite a while, because
Yeah.
I tried to use the wording that everybody uses, right?
Uh-huh.
The transformation and the beauty
Yes.
behind it. But some
Hmm.
people just kind of want the flat out, like, okay, what are you
Yep.
going to do
Yep.
for me? Just, can you put right here? Let's make it simple,
Yeah.
lay it out, and then give me all the pretty words to fill it.
Mhm. And and it's yes, because we want our words to almost sound like it's art, right? We want it to be so beautiful. And but when people get on your website and they're like, okay, I don't understand any of this,
Yeah.
they're not gonna stay, they're not gonna reach out to you. And so you really have to be clear. Like transformation sounds great, but that transformation for your audience may be, let me help you make 10K plus months consistently in your
Mm-hmm.
business. That's a lot more clear and definitive versus I'm going to help you with a transformation.
Yeah.
And so but you can't create that messaging until you really know what it is that your people want. And never get stuck on it being the same all the time. Like it should be evolving. If your messaging doesn't change over the course of a year or two, something's not right. Like you
Mm-hmm.
really need to continue to evolve that messaging because as you begin working with more and more people, you're going to start noticing trends of the people that you're attracting. And if you
Yeah.
like the people that you're attracting, then you definitely want to make sure your messaging aligns with those people.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that too, because I do think a lot of people tend to get stuck in, and I did this in the very beginning when I was transitioning from real estate into what was originally consulting work. And I was so stuck on the consulting piece and sticking within that realm when I knew that there was this pull to do more. I knew there was this pull to integrate coaching, to start having conversations around mindset and fears and addressing that as well. And I fought with myself for the longest time because I was so afraid that people were going to see that I was doing something a little bit different. And instead of them seeing it as an integration and an evolving, they were going to see it as, oh, well, she just changed up her work. She went from doing this to that. Well, why would I work with her? She can't stay in the same thing. Like that was my immediate thought, but a lot of us, we tend to have those
Yeah.
judgmental thoughts that's in this imaginary book that does not exist. And we get more stuck on ourselves than what anyone else is really actually thinking.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I'm sitting here and I'm like, you can go online and change completely what it is you're doing, and half of people won't even notice it. Some might be like, "Oh, I remember so and so used to do this, and now they're doing this," and that's
Yep.
okay. Like you can make it a part of your story, you can make it a part of your transformation, you can make it a part of your elevation, right? Like now you're elevating
Yeah.
into new things. It's okay. It's okay to change, and that is another thing that I had to get comfortable with in entrepreneurship because you're going to start learning as you continue to grow. And you're like, I really enjoy doing this as well. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to find ways to incorporate it into what you're doing or completely change. And that's a hard one. Like, there's people
Yes.
who've done things for years and they're like, it no longer serves me. I'm ready for something else. And that's okay. Do a
Mm-hmm.
transitional phase, right? Like start slowly moving over to the other side so that you can really get into doing what you truly enjoy. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all a part of the process, all a part of the journey, and we all just have to learn to love it and accept it for what it is and be okay with it. Be okay with it. And I know that's easier said than done, but with time it definitely gets easier. With
Mm-hmm.
experience, time, you learn like, okay, it's a part of it.
Right. And there's that trust factor, right? Like when you start kind of building your own confidence, your inner courage, your inner
Yeah.
trust, it does start to make it a lot easier when you're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm done with that. Like, I want to move to this. And having that conversation with people, like that's even been easier for me when I have those conversations and people ask me, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't really do that anymore. I'm like, I know amazing people that do that. And I can connect you with them, but that's not really my piece of cake anymore. But it does take really working through that and getting comfortable with those changes as you go through them and accepting them, so that as you continue to, like you said, elevate, those transitions just become a natural part. And like you said, it does become a part of your story, and it becomes such a natural flow that it's not such a big deal. And when you don't make it a big deal, nobody else makes it a big deal.
No, they don't.
They don't.
No. I'm telling you, it's just like it's just another part of of your journey. People they
Mm-hmm.
don't read into it as much as we think they will.
Yeah. Yeah. We do read into a lot more than we ever should. That's something. Well, Valencia, I've had an amazing time speaking with you. Before we end, I always have one question that I bring up to all of my guests, and that is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. So I remember probably like a year or two ago, this was one of my favorite quotes, and it still stuck with me. I can't tell you the name of the person now, but it was, be the person you wish you had growing up.
Oh, I love that.
And that to me was amazing because I just got into mentoring young girls at the time. And I was like, I want to be able to pour so much into them and even the people my clients. So being that person for them that teaches them things that they never knew, being the one to really
Mm-hmm.
help them move forward in their life the way that they want to and give them that guidance. And so it's constantly just being the person you wish you had growing up, that person to constantly guide you along your path.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Well, Valencia, thank you so much for giving us that amazing quote. So tell us, how can everybody connect with you? Where can they find you? How can they be in your world?
Yeah. So, a few things. So, LinkedIn, that is my space and place. So, LinkedIn, you can find me. It's Valencia Bennett, my name. I am on there. I post Monday through Friday. The next thing is my website. So you can go to my website. My company name is Savvy Method. So my website is savvy-method.com. You can go there, find out more about me and my business. And then I am starting YouTube. So I
Uh-oh.
have a YouTube channel now. Oh my goodness, this has been so different. Like being on camera is something I'm definitely trying to get more comfortable with. So I
Hmm.
tell people, just bear with me. It's going to get better. But
It's a
yes, I
journey.
do
It's a
have,
process.
it's a journey. Like I'm leaning into it. I'm accepting it for what it is. And I know after 100 videos, I'm going to go back and look at those first few and be like, you've come very far. You've come very far. But yes, my YouTube is Savvy Method. And so you can go there and subscribe to my channel. And my goal is to bring amazing content for coaches to help them elevate and grow their businesses. And I make those videos 10 minutes or less. So
Oh,
that is how you can get in touch with
nice.
me.
I love that. And we'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes as well. So, Valencia, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today and pouring into our audience with all of your amazing knowledge. I love it so much. And to everybody else that's out there, I hope you guys got some amazing tips and some takeaways. And until next time, don't forget, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So, until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.